First, we had Sunshine State Standards, and then we transitioned to the next generation Sunshine State Standards, which were really a transition into our more rigorous standards that we have now. It was a change in each subject area, and each subject area made that flip, that change in 1 year. So our English Language Arts standards changed from Sunshine State Standards to Next Generation Sunshine State Standards. Try to say all that real fast several times. In 1 year. And then in mathematics, we made that change in 1 year. In social studies, we made that change in 1 year. You get the idea. And at the state level, we did nothing more than publish the standards. Districts were left at that time making that change to figure out how to implement on their own. And then, as you knew, we moved into the new standards, and we anticipated the change, and we released a timeline back in 2010 when those standards were adopted by this board. And that implementation plan timeline was developed so as to help align all of the resources so that we would have a successful implementation. And then, as a team of the department, we determined that we wanted to assist districts with the implementation. No one told us to. Districts didn't approach us and ask us. The legislature didn't mandate it. But the department felt that it was very important that we provide support in the implementation. We made sure that CPALMS, which is an online tool that's available, included the standards as well as some lesson plans and links to resources that could be used by teachers. The resources in CPALMS are very useful, and in my conversations with teachers who were around before CPALMS, they say they would have given anything for a resource like CPALMS when they were in the classroom. The department also took upon itself the task of providing training during the school years for 2 years in a row and for the past 2 summers, in which every district was represented and over 14,000 educators trained. So we went from 0 training with the Next Generation Sunshine State Standards to well over 14,000 educators trained with the new standards adopted by this board. The districts also had to provide the department with what their implementation plan was going to be in order to be reimbursed for their travel. We didn't have a lot of tools to use to be able to mandate something, but if they wanted to be reimbursed, they would give us how they were going to implement in their district. We also provided this summer a grant to districts for use to train even more on the implementation of the Florida standards as we move forward. Also, I want to emphasize again that it is important that I point out that as we moved from Sunshine State Standards to Next Generation, it was implemented for the purpose of being a stepping stone and serve to prepare our students and our teachers for where we are now. That was the transition between Sunshine State Standards and where we are moving now. So we move into the new assessment, which will be implemented this year, and it is on time and on schedule, and we are moving forward as was proposed. The department provided the superintendents with a timeline for resources that will be released, and that was given to superintendents on May 2nd, and it was shared on our legislative update tour that we did throughout the state. Our bi-monthly school district instructional leaders regularly scheduled call, and with this board at the last state board meeting. We are on time to meet all of those timelines that were presented, and in fact, one of the assessment directors from one of the larger districts sent an email praising the department staff for doing an amazing job hitting all of our targets. We do have a signed contract, and we will deliver draft sample items and item specifications on June 30th. It's important for us to focus on, so listen carefully as I talk about this. We're going to release sample items and item specifications in draft form, and although they are draft and they will be enhanced as we go along, they are being released on June 30th. That is much earlier than these same resources were provided for the change when we moved from FCAT to FCAT 2.0. So I already gave you some information as we move from Sunshine State Standards to Next Generation and how that transition occurred compared to the transition as we moved from Next Generation to the standards we have now. Equal to that comparison is our comparison as we moved from FCAT to FCAT 2.0 and those resources that were provided, and now as we are moving from FCAT 2.0 to the Florida Standards Assessment. When we moved to FCAT 2.0, we released sample items for reading and mathematics in October. In October. We're releasing June 30th this time. And item specifications for mathematics were released in December. We're releasing June 30th. And reading item specifications were released in January of 2011, the year that assessment was given. That means that district schools and teachers will have this information at least 9 months before the assessment is delivered, which is significantly earlier than these same resources were provided in the last transition that Florida went through. It's also important to note that the best teaching, I will forever believe, that the best teaching occurs is the teaching that focuses on the standards, not on sample test items, not on item specifications. We at the department, and I think this state board would agree, that we would always encourage and train teachers to teach the standards. That's why we have CPALMs. That's why we did all of the training that we did. We need to be sure we are teaching the standards, and then the assessment will take care of itself. I've been preaching that sermon for years. I can share example after example of teachers' successes on the corresponding assessment when they focused on the standards and they were not stifled by teaching to the test. The transition, although it is a change for our schools, educators, and students, should not be a bigger change than other changes we made, and I am certain we are in a good place for successful implementation of the new assessment as well as the preparation for that. So I hope, Chair Chartrand, I answered your question about are we going to be ready in August.